Joining me now is David Pakman, host of his own YouTube independent progressive media show, The David Pakman Show. David, thank you for joining me. Let's start out with the election for Speaker of the House that took place just last week. It went on for 5 days, unprecedented, or at least not for a long while, over 100 years. Let's just start out with what you make of some of the big divisions within the Republican Party and the fact that it took that long.
Well, it's very interesting because there's two sides to this. There's the principle. And in terms of the principle, the Republican holdouts who were refusing to acquiesce and vote for Kevin McCarthy, even when it seemed inevitable that he would somehow figure out a way to be speaker, they really were the principled ones in the sense that look at someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's gotten a lot of attention for being against the rhinos and against the establishment and all these things. And then she said, well, they're giving me committee assignments probably, so I'm going to go and vote for Kevin McCarthy. That's not really principled. The people who were holding out were really the principled ones. The irony is they're crazy. They're principled in that Kevin McCarthy isn't nearly extreme enough for them. So they were saying, we want someone even further to his right. So the end result after the 15 ballots is McCarthy ends up speaker. The Republican Party is certainly fractured, and the speakership itself feels as though it's as weak as it has been in a very long time.
And I mean, to what extent, you mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene with her committee assignments, et cetera, but to what extent are the Republicans who voted for Kevin McCarthy only voting for him for things like committee assignments, potentially on congressional leadership, et cetera? And how might this have looked different if that wasn't a factor that came into play?
It's so difficult to know, Wyatt, and the reason why is that the modern American Republican Party states their principles only insofar as those principles are convenient. You know, you and I could be having a very different conversation if the modern Republican Party, when they said, listen, our principles are individual liberty, low taxes, limited regulation, limited foreign intervention, whatever, right? And you and I could say, okay, well, let's evaluate that against the politics of McCarthy, and we would have your answer. The problem today is these Republicans don't really care about those principles. They're for supporting the police until the police become the enemy like they were on January 6th. And they're against regulation until they want to regulate Twitter, to force Twitter to publish their COVID disinformation. So I don't have an answer because they don't really have principles. They have marketing, which takes the form of here's what we're for until it's what we're against.
And I mean, the election for Speaker of the House is supposed to be kind of a very elementary first day of school type thing as a vote in the House of Representatives. So what does it say that it was this difficult to elect a House Speaker as to what they will potentially be able to get done with a very slim majority in the House of Representatives?
I think either way, even if they had gotten a speaker with one vote, they weren't getting very much done over the next 2 years. We know that the priorities that this Republican House has include investigating Joe Biden, maybe impeaching him for what we don't know. It doesn't really matter, but just impeaching Joe Biden potentially. Definitely investigating Hunter Biden, even though Hunter Biden has no role in his father's administration whatsoever. And obstructing Democrats when it comes to things that may pass the Senate, getting in the way of the Biden agenda. That's their plan for the next 2 years, whether it took 115 or 1,500 votes to get Kevin McCarthy to be the speaker.
And then just lastly, before we conclude, what does this mean for the Democrats that they still have controlled the White House? They still control the Senate. In fact, they gained in regards to control of the Senate now at 51-49. And yes, obviously they don't control the House now, but as we've both alluded to, it's still a very slim margin.
The best hope for Democrats is that they can get Republicans on board with some basics. There will be things that there will be a natural disaster, or there will be a debt ceiling issue, or there will be something where hopefully the Senate and the House can agree, we have to do this for the good of the American people. Then it will be a matter of posturing for 24, because Republicans will get in the way and then say, these Democrats didn't do anything for the last 2 years. Yes, because we didn't let them, but they didn't do anything. Democrats need to have a plan to keep the country functioning to the extent that they can, and to be ready for that campaign talking point as 2024 gets going, which it will probably do in about 10 months. And that's really the best Democrats can hope for.